Transport for London have shamefully had to apologise for any offence caused by an ad that it had authorised from minicab ride-hailing app Kapten. The campaign-themed "Get Me Out of Here" showed a picture of a sinister-looking man with the wording, "When your blind date is recognised on the news, then get me out of here, Captain." TfL have been contacted after a number of critical comments about the ad, but it's funny, isn't it? Because people don't seem to understand that drivers who will be working for Kapten are the same drivers who work for any other e-hailing app, such as Uber, whose drivers were accused of 56 sexual assaults last year alone. So an unsuspecting vulnerable passenger could in fact be going out of the frying pan and into the fire. Now, a further criticism of mine is the proposed 5-minute wait period in 2016 so that rideshare drivers could pre-plan their route in the wake of the amount of accidents they were having was dropped systematically by TfL, who claimed that potential passengers could be left hanging around on risky street corners. But in contradiction to this claim, the increase in pedestrianisation of London Street could see people walking for far longer than 5 minutes in an attempt to access any mode of transport. Hypocrisy in abundance, if you ask me. As for the ads, TfL have decided to remove them all, and this is the second ad in recent weeks. A Viavan ad had previously been removed after showing one of its minicabs unlawfully picking up passengers whilst parked on a zebra crossing. It seems there is one rule for them and another for us. The question remains, how and who are these ads being approved by, and how are they making it on to billboards on the London Underground? The RMT is encouraging drivers to write to their MPs to ask them to sign an early day motion that has already been tabled. The government's appointed Taxi Task and Finish group has stated that technological advancement that blur the distinction between taxis and private hire means plying for hire illegally is difficult to prove. Whilst I would dispute that somewhat, at least the task force recommendation is that the law needs to be modernised with a new statutory definition of plying for hire. The report, however, was shelved by the Department of Transport, obviously because the findings are in our favour. So the already tabled early day motion focuses on re-energising this and the responsibility MPs have to seeing through this independent government report. And that can only be a good thing, so get writing to your MPs. Taxis, of course, play a vital role in providing safe and secure publicly hired transport to a high standard. This is being undermined by less regulated private hire vehicles, not licensed to ply for hire. The problem is exacerbated not by advances in technology, in my book, but by TfL's refusal to tackle the problem and failure to enforce the statutory regime against exploitative companies such as Uber. And it's not only confined to Cabbies in London who think so. Last Tuesday, I had the pleasure of joining representatives of UTAG, which consisted of Trevor Merrills and Angela Clarkson, both directors of UTAG, and Cabvision CEO Lee DeCosta on a journey to York. Wendy Loveday, who arranged the meeting and spoke on behalf of most of the north of England, representatives who were also in attendance, are very keen on getting involved in UTAG. This is the second meeting with Wendy, who's acted as a conduit for drivers all over the country who are having their livelihoods stripped away from them by the same sort of lackadaisical or non-existent regulation that we are experiencing here in London. So not only is UTAG gaining strength here in the capital, but it is welcomed with open arms as a bastion of light for the taxi drivers all over the country. If you didn't know my views on it by now, know this. This is win, lose or draw for the taxi trade. And we need to organise with unity and have the collective strength now before it's too late. If the cab trade is weakened to such a position that it cannot mount a collective challenge, then it is over. The time to act is now, and I can't emphasise that enough. Here are some of the issues that York is facing.
As a trade united, we have spent our own money doing your job. We have engaged legal professionals and have shown you the exact law that Uber are breaking. We have explained in great depth how the 1976 Act, Section 46 1D, and your council's legal position from the same 76 Act are not different, but actually blend and work together to support a prosecution. We have shown you that Uber know that they are breaking Section 46(1)(d) of the same Act because they will not answer any questions on it in relation to York. 9 times they have been asked and 9 times they have not responded. We have shown you that you have little to fear where Uber claiming any court costs against York is concerned. We, the trade, and your GLR Council Committee have shown you that regardless of anything else, this situation with Uber breaking the law in York needs clarification. It has to go in front of a judge. Councillors, what more can we do? For a council that was elected on a commitment to listen to residents as well as supporting openness and transparency, you have made a very poor start.
The first glimpse of Driven to Despair, the short film focusing on the mental well-being of drivers who are affected by TfL's poor performance, neglect and dereliction of a duty of care, and that applies to thousands of hard-working individuals, was released last week. The trailer featured drivers, mental health representatives, interested parties and Keith Prince from the GLA Conservatives. The film was funded by cab drivers themselves, and those spearheading the initiative are looking now to publicly screen the film at a central London venue when it is released on July the 19th.
The major threats to our job, our trade, is the competition, without a shadow of a doubt. Unregulated competition in particular, and exploitative companies like Uber.
What it comes down to is just doing the right thing. If people are struggling because of the rules and regulations you're imposing on them, the least you can do is help them out.
The demonstrations in Parliament Square continue to hold strength and seems to be a suitable location considering the press attention the area is getting due to the Tory leadership race. For those that don't attend, the organisers are asking, what is more important than protesting the local implementation plans that adhere to the Mayor's transport strategy, granting the borough councils the autonomy to restrict access to taxis? What is more important than protesting being downgraded to a mode of transport that is considered no different to a car driven for private purposes? What is more important than protesting not being deemed an integral part of the public transport solution, which will displace us into all other traffic, forcing us around costly, time-inefficient routes? And what is more important than protesting the engineering of a reduced fleet, which will influence mainline stations to offer holding spaces for private hire, demonstrable already at Heathrow, City Airport XL and Westfield, and eventually opening them up to tender? Why does anyone think we are any different to Luton? These are all very poignant questions, and these punitive policies need to be protested at every turn. The Mayor's State of London debate took place last night at the Indigo Centre at the O2 Arena. The debate revolved around 4 categories: housing, business, safety and transport. Whilst taxis could apply to at least 3 out of 4 of those categories, a single question was tabled by Steve McNamara from the Licensed Taxi Drivers Association, who first congratulated the Mayor on the fantastic job that he was doing in helping the cab trade clean up its fleet, and he suggested that the Mayor look into using parallel technology that the buses use to prevent the lifespan of a taxi being reduced to 12 years. Heidi Alexander, the Deputy Mayor for Transport, who answered the question, was mildly receptive, but took the opportunity to remind us all that 42 million had been put aside to help taxi drivers convert to electric. Needless to say, I am furious. Not only have taxis been wiped out of crucial elements of the Mayor's transport strategy, but drivers are suffering immeasurably because they cannot rent cabs due to fleet owners decommissioning them at an alarming rate. Is Heidi going to compensate drivers who can't pay their mortgages because they haven't got a vehicle to ply their trade in? Heidi and the Mayor claim everyone has to play a part and take responsibility for this. I doubt that they will, because they are not the ones who are suffering, and seemingly neither is Steve McNamara. He doesn't drive a cab, and you would only want to congratulate the Mayor, not once but twice I might add, if you was in favour of losing the marquee position of a 2-tier system. As I firmly am not, I consider it to be a decimation beyond anything we would have ever considered imaginable. Steve McNamara should be ashamed.
I can fully understand exactly what your proposals are. I would say, however, that the Mayor has put £42 million aside. £42 million, it's a lot of money for the black cab trade to de-license dirty vehicles. And lots of people have been applying for that. Thousands of black cab drivers have applied for that. So that's really, really good news. But we've got to get on and tackle this problem urgently. So I come back to that main point. It has to. Your proposal would have to deliver the same benefits.
Two London cabbies and a theatre producer have come together to produce an anthem. The track We Are London is already taking the dance scene by storm, and the radio edit, which features Lee Zammo from Grange Hill MacDonald, is due to be released in a couple of weeks' time. John Cox and Joe Cartwright, who are established musicians in their own right, thought London was in desperate need of an anthem, and together with Vaughan Williams, owner of the Charing Cross Theatre, decided to produce one. Here's what Joe had to say to Duncan Barks from BBC Radio London.
I was driving home one night and I was just listening to the radio. I think I might have even been listening to radio. I can't remember if I listened to Radio London. I was listening to something and there were some old tunes playing, and I love the 60s sound. I was born in 69, so I grew up in that sort of early 80s period with Madness and all the rest of it. And I just had this idea started going around in my head with this chant, this almost like football style chant going around in my head with the We Are London thing. And so I went straight up to our little studio, our little humble studio that myself and John have got. And I laid down the basis of what the We Are London sort of chorus was. And it was the next day that John very nearly walked out of the studio without actually listening to the track. And I begged him to listen because we were working on something completely different. So I begged for him to stay and listen to it. And once he listened to it, he started getting these ideas about this narration thing going on. Yeah. And we just expanded on that idea. And then it was down to, well, who do we get? Who can we get to come in and do this narration? And we went through a series of names. And one night, again, I think I was listening to the radio and the Grange Hill theme played on the radio. I don't know what they were doing, whatever it was. And I just suddenly had this idea for Lee MacDonald. And so I put it to the lads and yeah, it was like, you know, a winner all round. So we got in touch with Lee and Lee was brilliant. He was fantastic. He came and recorded the narration for us. We laid down the vocals that needed to lay down and, you know, as time went on, we managed to get everybody in doing their little bit on the vocal at the end.
5 weighty London cab drivers, collectively known as Cabbies do Kilimanjaro, who are fundraising to raise £20,000 for the taxi charity for military veterans, are now not quite so hefty. The team, who are only 3 months away from climbing Kilimanjaro and have lost an amazing £141 between them, were earlier this week delighted to find out that they have been made tourist ambassadors for Tanzania and were guests at this week's Tanzanian High Commission here in London. Good luck to them. And there's more good news. LondonTaxiPR, a fantastic trade initiative that promotes licensed taxi trade issues, are winners. Again, for the second year in succession, LondonTaxiPR proudly announced that they have won the Best Transport PR Agency for 2019 as part of the Business Excellence Awards 2019 by Acquisition International. It doesn't get any better than that, does it? And I'll be putting links out to how you can go about supporting both Cabbies do Kilimanjaro team and LondonTaxiPR. That is it for this week, folks. Remember, keep your eyes peeled. This is Sean Paul Day for London Taxi Radio, and I'll see you out there on the mean streets.